Hey, this is the Hobo Script. I'm Topher, the Paranormal Hobo, and we're here talking indie movies, horror, all things creepy, and talking to the people who do this stuff. With me tonight is Scott Blake, and he is a special effects artist that has worked with me on several films and is continuing to work with us, and a lot of other people right here on the Hobo Script. Welcome, Scott, to the Crypt. What is happening?
Not a whole lot. Actually, not a
We
whole
we
lot.
we have worked with you for I think almost all of our movies in some capacity.
All of them.
I think close to them, like
It
any most of the
seems.
horror movies.
It seems like it's been years, like a long time. I don't know how many years it's been. Maybe
I think
7.
2014 was when we started with Rutledge,
Okay.
and so it was with like we did like just small boxes and stuff for like the code swipers and
Yeah.
whatnot for like Richard Watson. Wow, like
I can't remember what's what. Like
yeah, no, like
what was
just going
first.
back through like all of the list of stuff that we've done. Um, how did you get started? Like the I where I saw you most at the beginning was doing Jack Sparrow coats and all of that stuff. But
Yeah.
like, where did you get started?
Well, everything was an accident. Um.
All fun things are.
Yeah. Uh. It's kind of a long story, and I try to always every time I tell it, I try to shorten it every time so it's not so long. But I was going on vacation to Key West. I had a friend down there that worked at a hotel, so she was telling me about things to do and stuff. And excuse me, about a week before I went down, she emailed me and said, bring a pirate costume because there's this big pirate festival, and the Schooner Wharf, which is a big bar right there on the water, um, was having a pirate costume party. It was a big pirate party. So I went to Goodwill and I bought a black women's dress, a couple like a belt, a really long skinny belt, and I can't remember. Oh, a black sun hat. The with the big wide brim,
Hmm.
and so I made a tricorn hat out of the hat and put like I don't know a piece of leather around it and cut up the woman's dress and stitched it back together with like pieces of I don't know hemp string or something. And I also bought a black pair of football pants, and I took the padding out of the pants, or maybe they were baseball. They were baseball pants, and they just went down just past the knees. So I ended up buying a pair of like pirate boots, the bucket boots.
Hmm.
Some cheap leather pair. It was like really cheap, but they were great. They were comfortable. But anyway, um, entered the contest, won first place, and won all this stuff, lots of free rum. And then she told me I should join this group out of Orlando. It was a pirate themed entertainment group. And I'm like, well, I live in Indiana, remember? And she's like, well, she knew there was one person that was in it that didn't live there. They just, whenever they vacationed, they went and did stuff with them. So that's what I started doing, which that only lasted a couple of months, really, because like that was kind of like their busy season. And
Right.
I ended up going back like a month later And then maybe a couple of months after that, I went back for something that was like a week long. And after that, I was flying down. We were doing so much stuff. I mean, it was just a pirate themed entertainment group. They did anything, dinner parties, they put on dinner shows. We would write dinner shows according to whatever the situation was, like uh, a corporate party. Like we did one in Puerto Rico where this corporation rented this resort for the company to, go and spend their weekend at. And so we wrote this show specifically that involved like certain people from the company and stuff like that. But I was flying to Florida every month, if not every other week, and I wasn't paying anything. They would fly
Oh
me
well,
down.
that makes it even better.
Yeah, they would fly me down, and then of course I'd stay with my friends that were there, and then we would go do this whatever we were doing. Either it would be we would drive up and down the East Coast everywhere, or we'd hop a plane or on a boat. Um, we went to Jamaica, can't remember, 2 or 3 times. Puerto Rico twice. Um, Gosh, the Bahamas, all over the Bahamas. All up the East Coast. Uh,
And how old were you when you were doing this?
hmm. Well, this was about 2003 is when I went on vacation. Um, by 2004, of course, when I did this, I made a better costume. I
Right.
didn't wear the woman's dress and all that stuff. So I made myself a more authentic looking costume because that's what they were. That's one of the things about the group is they were authentic looking, which if you can picture authentic looking versus the Walmart pirate look.
Oh yeah.
Um, but so I had to make a whole new costume, and I made a coat and everything, and everyone liked what I made and wanted me to make them something. So it kind of started snowballing. So that was in about 2004. I was doing that part time while I worked full time at my. I had a corporate position that I was at for 10 years. And by 2006, I quit that job to do my sewing full time, basically. Um, but by then, I was making the Jack Sparrow costumes, which I
Yeah.
made everything, the wigs. A couple for a little bit, I made the beard that you could glue on if you couldn't grow one. um, and then all the beads and trinkets that go in the wigs. I made the vests, the shirts, the coat, the pants. I had a deal, worked with the original bootmaker that made the Jack Sparrow boots for the movies, um, CA Boots,
hmm
um, and I was selling like a full package deal with everything included, even boots, and I was getting the boots from the original maker, um,
Nice.
wholesale, I guess you could say. And so you could basically buy everything. The only thing I didn't make was anything leather because I just don't do leather work.
So,
So
like, how many people do you think have your Jack Sparrow stuff?
well, I don't know. It was just a post. I had a memory pop up on Facebook the other day about uh, wigs, the Jack Sparrow wigs.
I seen that one.
And before that, like maybe a week before, had something. I don't remember what it was, but it posted something about the coats because I had made a lot of coats. Because I was making the coats out of the original fabric that the movie coats were made from. up until the mill stopped making it and wouldn't start making anymore. So I had to find, the next best alternative.
Mm-hmm.
The coats still sold the same as the original fabric coats, but it's like then they stopped making that fabric. And then I had to find the next alternative. And it was like every time I had to find the new alternative,
Slowly goes down in quality.
yeah. And then by the time it got down to the last thing that was just a little too horrible, I don't know, maybe I made a few using this stuff, but then I just said, forget it. If it's not the original fabric, I'm not making them anymore. And
Yeah, I
I
know. I
didn't.
remember when you said you're like, "Hey, I'm going to have to step away." Yada yada yada. I remember you making that announcement.
Yeah. And
So like we
I've
were
made it.
connected. We have been connected at that time by then.
Dang,
So that
that
was
was a
quite
long
a few
time
years.
ago. Yeah. But I made a few more after that, but that was people that had some fabric, original fabric that they had on a shelf or something, or that purchased from somebody else. Because I think there was one or two other people that actually went to a mill and had them make a certain amount of yards of this fabric, and then they sold it off. Probably made a lot of money.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know they did because if you follow Pirates of the Caribbean at all, in the beginning he just had a blue linen vest, and then by what Pirates 3 he had this silk vest with gold ish embroidery on it. Um,
And like everything was screen accurate with your stuff too. That's what was
yeah,
cool about it.
yeah,
Like you literally could see it in the picture. You're like, hey, that's exactly like that.
yeah. With the Jack Sparrow stuff, it got to that point because if it wasn't screen accurate, nobody wanted to buy it because
Right.
there's a lot of crap out there. A lot of people that made the same stuff, but just looked really goofy or something, and they were making tons of money on it. So, the best way to keep up with that is to make it as screen accurate as possible. And if it wasn't, then don't use it.
Right.
So, actually, in the beginning, I could not find the buttons for the coat at all. So, I sculpted the damn things and made a
Nice.
mold. And so, I had up to
This,
I had 12 molds of buttons, and I made those out of resin and hand painted each one to look like aged brass.
did
That
you ever
sucked.
thought about just like putting the buttons out there? Like, hey, authentic buttons for your coat. Come get them by the whatever, $50.
Well, they wouldn't be authentic because they were resin. They
Right.
weren't brass. I could have done that if I wanted to get into forging and all that. But
Smelled it down and poured
yeah,
it into.
but there was a guy that actually went to a factory he lived in Germany that he had the buttons made, so he had brass buttons, and I just ordered from him.
Nice.
So that made it easier.
So
Unfortunately, from
what
Germany.
transitioned you from the Jack Sparrow stuff into movie stuff?
Well, I made nothing but Jack Sparrow items for almost 10 years. So that's why mainly one reason why everything was screen accurate as possible, because that's all
Mhm.
I did. So
Right.
that's all I concentrated on. And I started getting into I started making the compass, the Jack Sparrow compass. Um, because and only because I can do woodworking, but I just don't like it. I don't care for it, and I'm not the greatest. Um, but I can't remember what store I was at. I remember it was one of those huge stores that have like big bins full of the same thing, some kind of bargain place or whatever. And I walked by this bin that was full of jewelry boxes, wooden jewelry boxes, the exact size and shape of the Jack Sparrow compass. And I
Nice.
thought,
Like, I could repurpose that.
I could. I maxed out a credit card buying what I could. And then I went back the next day because I think I borrowed somebody's credit card to buy out the rest of them. And that because that's all they had was in that bin. That's it.
It's like, just if you get any more, just send it to my house. Like,
Yeah. Well, they had, it was one of those bargain places. That's all they
Right.
had, and they put it out. And couldn't ever figure out who made them because I was going to contact the maker and say, "Hey, send me some."
I'll just buy it direct from you.
So I can't remember how many I actually bought, but that would have been all of the compasses that I made. I'm going to guess that there was probably almost 150 of them. But I had 150 jewelry boxes that I converted into the compass.
Nice.
And yeah, but if I hadn't found that jewelry box, I would have never even gotten into making those because there's too much little detail pieces to cut. And
Right.
that's not my thing. I had to do some work on the jewelry box because I had to cut a hole in the top and then add a dome and fill in where the dome would meet the wood, and then the inside was hand painted like the stars and everything. I enjoyed making them. It was fun till I ran out, and then I just had to say no. I'm sorry, I just don't make them anymore.
It's like I can't get the boxes.
I'm not even sure if I even told anyone back then that I was using a repurposed jewelry box. And I honestly think that that's maybe how they made the original.
I've learned that a lot of the props aren't never really done from scratch. It's more of a take this, take this, take this, take this, merge it together, and add hodgepodge or mold, the green mold, sculpting putty or whatever, and all right, it looks good for screen.
Patch it, paint it, use it.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah,
I mean, the little box that you made for us, it was supposed to be our remote internet access.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that just like a repurposed router and with other bits like a case? And
that was okay. I took a router apart to use the little strip of plugs and buttons, and then if I remember right, the case itself was the plastic case that my cheap airbrushes come in from Harbor Freight. I just cut out. Where's my cat? I just cut out, what I needed, where the plugs would go, and then I can't even remember what else I put on there. But
I know you're like, here's the plug. You can actually plug it in or whatever. Don't
plug it in the power. Yeah, probably not a good idea. But yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of prop you're building. Maybe you can get away with just totally repurposing something, or maybe you might have to sculpt it, or maybe you'll sculpt something on a repurposed suitcase or something.
Well, I mean, isn't that like this, like the story of Han Solo's blaster or whatever? It's like a broom handle attached to a certain model gun, and with a little bit of stuff on top of it, whatever, and and add a little addition. But that's it. Like that's his blaster from the thing is like a Luger with a broom handle on it.
I was kind of into the Star Wars stuff a little bit for a while because how you asked me this question and I never answered, but how I transitioned from making the Jack Sparrow stuff into what I do now is I made the compass, which was a prop. It wasn't a cost. It wasn't sewing.
Right.
I really liked building those, and then I ended up. I think I saw the plans online or something that somebody had posted somewhere on how to build a stormtrooper blaster from PVC pipes, and I thought, well, that looks fun. So
That'd be cool.
I followed his little. I can't remember if they were drawn out or what, but I followed his plans and I started seeing it come together, and I thought, well, wait a minute. I was looking at what little pieces that he was using and seeing what was or wasn't accurate, because the stormtrooper blasters were kind of pieced together and kind of not. They were just had little things added here and there. And so what I did is when I actually started putting this together, I started comparing what he had going on with the originals from the movies, and then I started looking for the parts, to match the originals. And I started finding all this stuff, and I ended up with a blaster that, of course, this was 2004, no, 2006, 2007, around in there. So this was early on. But if I knew now what I didn't know then, those blasters would have been super kick-ass. But I was just getting into fabricating and building things, and with that, like that. So, but it looked good. It just, there was things that I can look at now and think, man, I don't know why I did it that way, but
like, man, it should have been this way or that way. I do that with the movies that we made. Like, man, if we could do this, I would have done that a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
We're a lot differently, and you get done and you're like, oh crap, now I painted myself into a corner.
So when you edit a film, do you tend to rush through that,
No,
or do you take way too long?
I am kind of in the middle. I don't take too long. The one that you made our leg for in like last March, has been edited, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still working on the one from October. So,
Okay.
it's I got
That's
some
something.
I got some cool death scenes all edited together.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just find what I want to see, like how it worked out, so I'll edit that together, and then
Uh,
I'll put those in the time frame like where they're supposed to apparently go, and then I'll just edit out words from there. Like, okay, well I know this precedes into this one, so we'll connect this one, and then
mm,
so it'll take me probably before we shoot this next part, I'll have the last part done, like edited, hopefully. Fingers
cool.
crossed.
I can't wait to see the leg, how it looks.
Well, you have access to the NAS. It's on there. So,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah.
I
So
don't have a
you
lot. I don't these days right now. I don't have a lot of time to sit and be like, okay, what can I do? you know, and
No,
that's when I would do it. I would go and watch that, but
I
I
totally like
hardly.
it's one of those things like especially with picking this up and whatnot. Like I'm picking up like the people I'm talking to, like, hey, watch the movie before we talk about it, yada yada yada, here you go. So like I'm finding like throughout the day I'm getting all my stuff done, and as I'm laying down, like, okay, well I have just enough time, I'll watch it before I go to bed. And as soon as like I had to we're going to be talking to the guy who did Satanic Soccer Mom from Ohio. Like I literally had to finish watching the last part of that this morning because I was dead tired.
Yeah.
But like it was a good flick. Um, I get to talk to really cool people who are making cool movies and doing cool things like you. I mean, you did
Yeah.
the for Volumes of Blood. You did like the knives and what are you saying, like an axe or
Yeah, I can't remember exactly because uh, about the same time, I also did some weapons for Rocky Gray
mm-hmm.
for
Was it
1031.
yeah,
And I think he used the same weapons in 1031
part two?
part. I don't know what he called it, part two or something.
Yeah, I think it was
But
part two.
but yeah, it was kind of right after together. So it was like I made some weapons for Volumes of Blood and then for PJ. And I know there were like a couple of knives. Okay, there was like a French knife, a letter opener. I remember that one because that was little and it was kind of difficult. But I had to make, basically make safe copies of the originals that they wanted to use.
Right.
But they had this little letter opener. It was only like this long. Um, and then there was like a French knife. It was probably about, I don't know, 11 inches. And then I want to say there was a bigger, gnarly looking knife, but
Wasn't you like a meat cleaver? I was trying to remember some of the pictures that you had posted.
I really don't remember.
So it was like a butcher knife, and then I thought it was a meat cleaver, and
It may have been like I don't know what you call them, the shorter, lighter sledgehammers.
hmm, like
Um,
a mallet.
a mallet, yeah,
Yeah.
duh. Yeah, it may. I think I made a mallet and an axe. I remember making. I made a plastic axe and a foam axe. I think that was for Rocky's film 1031.
So you got like Volumes of Blood, 1031. You did the full creature suit for Gnawbone, which was awesome. And then you actually got to
Yeah,
be in that one as the harbinger,
yeah.
the crazy
Um,
guy. Don't go out there, you'll get killed.
you're all gonna die. Uh, yeah. When the uh, let's see, Darren Means called me, and I can't remember if James was there or not. James Thompson. They're the two, and that did that. It was kind of their story. If I remember right, it was like a story that they made up when they were little. Just about this monster in the woods type thing,
hmm
and they decided to make a movie about it. And well, anyway, they got a hold of me and said they had already talked to like one or two people, and nobody could do it within budget or didn't want to do it or what for whatever reason. And
Right.
somebody had given them my name, and they asked if I was interested. And this is something that I've always wanted to do because at that time I was sewing still,
hmm
and I don't know what else I was making. I was doing some kind of props or whatever, but I wanted to sculpt and I wanted to make monster suits and stuff. So when they asked if I was interested, I said absolutely. And I didn't tell them that I'd never done it before. I just said yes, I want to do it. And it's kind of just how I am. If I want to do something, I usually just do it, and I do it, and everything just works. So I knew this was something, it was something I really wanted to do bad. So I didn't lie, I didn't fib. I told him, yeah, I'm interested. I want to do it.
Yeah, sure.
They didn't. I don't think they ever asked if I'd ever made anything like that before. I would have told them no, but anyway, so yeah, I told them I'd get back with them on the cost, and then I sat down and did a lot of homework, and of course, I barely made any money off of it, um, just because materials were a little bit more than what I was expecting,
Right.
um, and harder to get too. But it worked out. I mean, everything turned out to be exactly. They sent me sketches because Darren's an artist. He sent me sketches of everything, the head and the full body, and they said this is what we want him to look like. And at first, I was a little scared.
It's like, oh shit, what did I get myself into?
Uh huh. Yeah,
Uh,
I felt like that for a moment, and then actually, I felt like that the whole time until all the materials came in and I started getting it out and doing something with it. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is going great. And it just kept going great. And I ended up with exactly what they sketched out.
yeah, I
And
mean, it looked gorgeous,
I,
especially with like the atmosphere pictures that you're able, like with the smoke
yeah,
behind it and whatnot,
yeah.
like that.
Well,
That was
unfortunately, nobody's probably ever going to see it again. I mean, there's DVDs out there. I don't know if people have burned them yet or not, but, and when I say burn, I don't mean copy.
right.
But no, it was a good movie. I mean, because it was made to look like an '80s monster movie.
Hmm. I
Uh,
mean, like you got to work with Katie O'Brien, who's now uh, in like the getting ready to be in the MCU. She's in Star Wars. She's got
yeah,
all of the,
yeah,
she's done all of
I'm
this stuff since like being a Carmel cop
right,
back when we first had known
right.
her.
Well, I'm happy for her. I'm glad things are going great for her. Unfortunately, she's the reason why Gnawbone never did anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right after Gnawbone was finished, that's when she went to California,
Hmm.
and Gnawbone was set to go to distribution, but she wouldn't sign off on it. So
Wow, that sucks.
yeah, I don't know. I don't
The benefit of
know.
having everybody sign paperwork before you start.
Yeah.
That
Well, you're talking about two guys that had never made a movie before.
yeah.
Okay, but you know what? They did an excellent job for neither one of them, making anything before.
Hmm.
They did a great job. They had a great help from Joe Saylor on camera. Um, he's awesome, and had pretty good actors, great acting. Um, the Gnawbone creature was actually played by three or four different people because I forget the first guy's name. He was hired to play Gnawbone because this guy was into the parkour stuff, and they wanted him to bounce off trees and stuff in the woods. And I can't
That
remember.
that have to be hard on the suit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I repaired the crotch and the armpits. Uh, this is odd. I repaired the crotch and the armpits a few times. Never had to do anything with the feet. Oddly, and which was it's just because those parts were thinner. The armpits and the crotch, and they're used a
Right.
lot more.
Yeah, because you're doing.
And the feet I poured extra thick. It was just all latex, and the feet were extra thick, so it was like he just slid his whatever tennis shoes he was wearing. He could slide them down in there, and they
Nice.
fit in there pretty well. But something happened to him. I don't know if he moved or something. Oh, I know what happened. Bad weather. It was being shot in the fall, and bad weather came. Winter came really early, the last day that they filmed was my day that I come in and played my part. Um, and it sucked so bad because it was so cold. Everybody was freezing. Luckily, that we were shooting behind this little convenience mart thing, so we could go in there and have coffee and sit at the tables and stuff.
Did you actually shoot in Brown County, like in or outside Gnawbone?
It was shot mostly around Madison, Indiana. Um,
Because that's what I think
and
every time I thought of that. Because I remember stopping in Brown County, like because I like the world's best tenderloin was on their sign.
uh,
Uh, it was the little
there,
truck,
well,
little stops at Gnawbone, and it
yeah,
literally was just
there's a little place called Gnawbone, and they have a Gnawbone campground.
yeah.
Um, but this has nothing to do with the movie.
I
Um,
was that's what I was just wondering. I was like,
other than I
did they
think
film around it?
when James and Darren were kids and they made up the story, that's probably where they got the name, calling it Gnawbone. Maybe they were at that camp. I don't know. I don't remember that
Well,
part.
I'll just have to get a hold of them and ask him the question.
Yeah, yeah. Talk to them about it. To ask them why they don't remake the damn thing, so we can do something with it. I actually kind of thought a little bit about contacting them and asking them if I can. I think it's a great movie. I loved it. And it's not just because, I made the monster. uh, it was a real cool 80s vibe
Throwback.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did a couple of versions, which they did one where they made it look like an old VHS tape, like it had the
The
lines in
scan
it.
lines and all the other.
I didn't like that. It was bothered me too much. But uh, I think they included both versions on the DVD that they sold. Um, but they sold some DVDs for, can't remember if it was to finish the Kickstarter or it was from the Kickstarter. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know how many copies are out there, but there's copies out there. I used to have a couple. I think I gave one away.
So I'd like to check that out. That was one of them that I was like just getting into doing some of the other stuff. And I was trying to convince Don and whatnot, like we should just do a lot more horror because horror uh,
It's fun.
it's fun, but it's also a place like the fans actually. There is no comedy conventions. There is no drama conventions. There's horror conventions.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God, could you imagine a drama convention?
a bunch of people just sitting around going, "Woo-hoo."
Wow. Higher extra security for those.
But you know what I'm saying? Like so like the horror has more of the touch with like the people.
Yeah.
Like their fan base is closer and more loyal, I think. Um,
Yeah.
so that's just kind of that was the time I was like, hey,
Why
hey,
do you
we
think
should
that
move in
is?
this
Is it
direction.
because it's gimmicky? I mean, there's
Um,
nothing gimmicky about drama.
Everybody kind of likes being scared, so I think that's why people kind of move into that direction. Like it gives them that little adrenaline boost.
Yeah.
Um, it is definitely like I said, you don't see people claim. Well, I mean, you do if they go to a general like sci-fi convention. I mean, sci-fi's got a huge following too.
Hmm.
But it's just like
Yeah.
comedy. You don't really see a you um,
Comedy convention would be fun.
like how would you do that? Like, would it be just stand-ups? Would you do uh like that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Steve Martin, come over here to be in our comedy convention thing.
Yeah. Well, you'd have, just like any other convention, you'd have your celebrity rows,
Hmm.
and they wouldn't do comedy there. but you would have like one of them probably do the evening show of the night. But you would have like throughout the day, you just have like little rooms instead of watching, films or hearing people talk about their movie. You go in there and watch comedy acts.
Well, see now, see this could work,
It
and
could.
anybody who wants to take it, just give us credit. Like
Mm,
you got the idea here.
Yeah,
Just
you have to call it the Hobo Crypt Scott Blake comedy jam.
extravaganza. Um,
Or not.
so we've sequestered you. I know you're doing a lot of home renovation now, but you have your next creature that you're doing. How excited are
Yeah,
you?
I'm really excited to make another creature. I've been wanting to make another full body creature for since Gnawbone, but and I've thought about just making one, but I don't usually like to spend money on stuff to make something if I don't have a reason to.
Right. I know. I feel you on that one.
Especially now that materials are like 3 times what they used to be in cost. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
just like the
excited.
1 gallon of like the shatterable glass or whatever was a third of or like a third of the price it is now. Like
Yeah.
400 and some odd dollars for just a gallon. Uh,
It'd have been better just to like make your actor wear some safety stuff and put him through a real plate glass window. Would have been cheaper.
yeah, I mean, well, except for insurance, but
Well,
the where did you make the head, and what was that for?
the head.
Yeah, the one that you got pulled over because it was in the back window, and
Oh, Karen's head. Um, what was the question?
it was like, what was that for?
Oh, what was that for?
And like,
Um,
how
okay,
much BS did you
let
have
me
to go
think.
through to get?
I'm trying to remember. I'm looking at her right now. She's mounted over my bed. I'm trying to remember who the model was. I'd have to look at her again. Um, I had made a casting of a female's face. Oh, okay. I kind of remember who it was now. I can't remember her name. I'd plug her. I can't remember her name. Anyway, I had to make a casting of her face, and I had that. Um, okay. I used to do some work with uh, like making stuff, costume pieces and stuff for photographers.
Yeah, because
And
you did like the Queen of the Damned
yeah, I did one of
style
those kind
thing,
of things. Um,
and the Slovene or the thing from Doctor Who.
yeah. Um, what did I do this one for? I did this one for, oh, it was like a female Pinocchio type character, um, baking a cherry pie. That was the theme for this photo shoot. It turned out really awesome. Um, just got this little, I don't know what it was, little skimpy costume, like maybe a German beer server or something. Um, and then the model, I took casting of her face because I made a Pinocchio nose to glue on
Yeah,
her.
I remember that.
And so I painted her whole body basically to resemble wood, painted joints in her wrists and her elbows, and uh, had this set, this table, and then I made I didn't make a cherry pie. I bought a cherry pie, and then took out like, I don't know, 2 or 3 pieces, and then around the edge where you cut out where you'd see the cherries, I had these little skulls that were about that big, about the same size of a cherry, and I rolled them around in the cherry jello stuff and pushed them into the edge of that pie so it looked like the cutout were these little cherry skulls. So I thought that was cool because there's a shot where she's like holding up a slice of pie and the cherries are actually little skulls.
That's cool.
But anyway, that's when I started doing masks and stuff like that. I wanted to play with silicone. I wanted to learn how to use silicone. So I used a casting of her face to make that face. And I named her Karen. And just, to learn how to use it. And it turned out great. She had great skin color. And I used fibers in there so it looks like little tiny blood vessels. And
I still have the one where the one mask that you were when you were first trying of your buddy's head.
oh yeah,
Like I still have that, and the green monster, or the one with the different eyes. And
green monster, different eyes.
yeah, like one's like the big bulging eye. And
Oh yeah, that was that was the like second sculpt that I did, second mask I made.
yeah, like the maggot face one.
Yeah, that was my first. Well, funny thing is Gnawbone, the head, everything, the whole Gnawbone creature was my first thing that I ever sculpted, ever. That's why, when I said they called me and asked if I was interested, I said yes. They didn't ask me if I'd ever done it before. So I'd never sculpted before. And that was the first thing I sculpted. So after that, I had, I got the
We
bug.
just come out swinging.
I really wanted to make masks after that. My first 3 masks are interesting. And when I look at them now, I think they're really dumb looking. Just because, I mean, it was the first 3 masks that I made, and I made them really quick because I was anxious. I made one and I was like, okay,
I
I'm
have an
gonna make
idea for another one.
Yeah, and I did like 3 in a row, and I didn't have any thought into it. I just started making something, and like all 3 of them, I had no plans to make those. It's just what came out after I was done, but I learned a lot on those first 3 masks. And then after that is when I started really paying attention to what I was doing and, started getting a lot better. But yeah, I don't know how. I mean, could Gnawbone have been better? Yeah, it could have. A lot better. Time's up.
No, that's my alarm telling me that I need to take something.
But yeah, Gnawbone could have been a lot better. But for their budget, honestly, it was great.
Yeah.
Because
No, like
I
I
was
said,
so into doing it, because it was my first time doing it, and I was getting paid. So
oh yeah. So like the skeleton. Because I remember when we were at the convention with you,
oh,
like
Larry,
Massifet. Yeah, Larry is like take a picture with Larry
yeah,
and tag I found Larry or something like that.
yeah, Larry was. That was. I made Larry a long time ago. I made Larry when I was first starting wanting to make more props. I was still doing a lot of sewing, but I was, toying around with, different props, and I saw something about corpsing these cheap plastic skeletons, and I thought, okay, that looks fun.
That
So
looks doable.
that's what Larry is. That's what he was. He was just a little play experiment that I just wanted to see how it worked, and Uh, he's just been the shop mascot since then.
Well, like I said, every time that I seen you for a while at the conventions and stuff, like he was just hanging out,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
pictures, getting pictures taken with celebrities.
he was. I didn't do any like shows or anything like that for a long time. Um, I didn't feel like I was good enough to do anything like that, so I didn't do them. Um, gosh, it was. I don't remember when it was. I did my first one, but yeah, when I started to go to my first one, I was like, well, I don't. What do I take? And Larry's always, he's got a place somewhere. He always stays. And I thought, well, I got to take Larry. He's always hanging there watching over things. So I took him, and people always started doing selfies with him. So the next show, I put him out front and gave him a name tag. And so, yeah, he's the, he's the shop mascot. Yeah.
So you got when you started doing shows, is when I started seeing the pictures of like the D. Snyder bust and um, those.
Yeah.
Like, how many busts in total have you done?
I don't know. There's been a lot of molds that I've thrown out too.
Like, they
Um,
just haven't worked out, and
huh?
they just didn't work out. And
Well, it's sometimes they crack or get broken, and if it's through the face, then they can be repaired.
but you have to
But
worry
it
about the
depends.
little
It
line.
depends on what it is. If it's something I'm still making some sales on, then I'll try to do whatever I can to save it. But if it's one that I haven't sold anything of for a while, then I'll just chuck it. You know, I'll bust it up and throw it away. Um, and there's like custom masks that I do that are like a one-off thing for
Hmm.
someone. I'll save the mold for a while, but if I don't hear from them for a long time or anything, I'll throw it out.
So
Um,
the one that killed me was like the D. Snyder, because you had like the two different uh image, or the two different heads, and then
yeah,
you got like a picture of D. Snyder, but like with the heads.
yeah. That I was. What? See, I forget what started that, but it was like the first show that I did. I can't even remember what it was, but the first show I did, I happened to have something that had something to do with one of the celebrity guests at the show. And I quickly figured out that, ooh, that went quick. People bought it and went and had it autographed, by the celebrity. So every show that I did after that, I would find out who the celebrity guests were, see if there's anything that I already do or can do quickly that has something to do with one of them. And if not, then I would, start a new sculpt or whatever. And I'd make something that had something to do with one of the celebrities. It almost guarantees them to sell.
Right.
Plus, it's a good way to meet the celebrity. You
Oh
walk
yeah.
by, hold their head up, and they're like, "Oh, hey, let me see that."
Like, wait, what?
But like with D. Snyder, I saw that he was no. Why did I do D. Snyder? You know what? I can't even remember why I did it now. I originally did it. I think it's because I've done a lot of rock
Mm.
masks, rock music, metal, whatever masks. And I think I was looking back on something from back in the day that I could do. And D. Snyder, with his makeup and everything. So I did the D. Snyder as he looked in Twisted Sister with the really, really bad makeup and all
And
that.
the wild hair.
And I did it during the time that he had the two front fangs. So I
Was that
put the
Strange
fangs.
World, or what was the movie?
Strangeland.
Strangeland.
Um, but yeah. So I made that, and I'd posted it back then. I had a Twitter account. And I had put it on Twitter, and he saw it, and he sent me a message, said he loved it, and he wanted me to make some. And then he put me in touch with his manager, and then his manager said, "Hey, what about if you do the Captain Howdy character from his movie Strangeland?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I did sculpted. Basically, I took a casting of the original that I did for the D. Snyder mask, and then made another clay casting of it, and then I sculpted in, all the facial jewelry and whatnot. Um, so yeah, then I don't know how many I've made. I want to say like total made like 75 each.
Nice.
So yeah, they haven't ordered anymore for a long time, so I think they're probably done with them. But yeah, that was cool, and yeah. So after I made these, it was like within the next 3 or 4 weeks was Days of the Dead convention in Indy that D was going to be at. So that's when. So we just planned to meet up there, and I'd take him the masks and show them to him and everything. So that's when the photos were taken. But we talked about Strangeland. He gave me like a signed copy of the movie and I
Nice.
don't know, a poster and something else. But we went behind his backdrop. We were talking about the movie. He's like, "Hey, you want to hear about uh, Strangeland 2?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, we went back behind his backdrop, and of course he's standing there holding his coffee because he always has coffee in his hand. And his coffee breath is blowing in my face because we're in this tight corner behind his backdrop, and he's telling me how Strangeland 2 happens. Because in Strangeland 1, what's his name? What's the character's name? Can't remember. Anyway, he dies in a fire. But Strangeland 2, when you if you hear about a Strangeland 2, well, you're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like
He died. Well, but then he told me, how they can, he didn't die, basically. And then you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? And so he set it up perfectly to end the first one to make you think he's dead. And then all of a sudden pop up with a part 2, and then you're like, oh, why didn't we think of that? So, in the last I heard, I mean, he said the script was done, and he had already been for a new body casting for his character with Wayne Toth, who works with Rob Zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last I've heard of it.
So fingers crossed that we'll hear some more about it.
I know. I think it would be cool because, that was when I forget the year, a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was when the internet first came out. Like you sign in, you got to hear the
like killing the computers.
yeah, yeah, that noise. It was back when that long ago. So it'd be cool to see Strangeland 2. In today's with the different technology and stuff, because it's all about this online stalker in the chat room. So, I mean, what he got now, you got Uber drivers, and you got he can do all kinds of stuff now.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of cool. Is there anything specifically that we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about? I know we covered a good scope of things because like you've done tons.
Yeah, I've done a lot of different stuff. Um, done movie stuff, commercial stuff. There was a
Well, I know you did the set stuff for Neon Cornfield,
yeah,
which was
that was fun to work on, and I had really high hopes for that. That was with Steve Mara, produced it, and directed. Um, I just really liked Steve. I liked everything. I've done a lot of things with him, and this was a pilot, and a pilot episode, and it was meant to be for like, gosh, and I don't watch TV or movies. I don't watch anything really, but maybe YouTube. But like, well, at the time, it was more like for Showtime. I
yeah.
think Showtime had series
It
shows.
was very much kind of like Weeds, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
So yeah,
with
it
porn
was
sets
meant.
in the middle of an Indiana cornfield.
There was some adult content, but not a lot.
Right,
So it was meant for, to be aired for on wherever where it wasn't prime time type
right.
stuff. But anyway, I thought it was funny and interesting and very well done. I mean, it had some cool people in it. I mean, Duke Tomato was in it.
Hmm.
If you know who Duke Tomato is. Um, Gosh, that was a long time ago. uh, but yeah, I made all kinds of stuff for that. Like
And
I
you
had
did the thing with Rupert's kid, with Rupert.
Rupert Bonham.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
Steve was
Rupert's Nightmares or something like that.
Rupert Bonham's Frightmares, I think.
Yeah,
Um, we shot 2 or 3 episodes of that. It was a pilot.
because like
Um,
there was like a werewolf hand or something, and
yeah, one episode was about a kid that worked at a storage unit place, and one of the storage units was being used to house a werewolf in a crate, and it breaks out of the crate, and this kid has to do his hourly security drive in the golf cart, and he sees the lock broken or something. All right, no, it was the only storage like overhead door that had this weird light up power lock on it, which was a prop that I had to make. But and so the kid's like checking it out or something and hearing noises, and anyway, he ends up running from the wolf. And but I made this giant crate. It like took up the whole bed of my pickup truck. That was the crate. And then I made this big werewolf arm, because that's all you really get to see, because it like swoops out from him or at him under the door. Um, but that show was meant to be kind of like a more modern day Goosebump type
hmm.
thing. But there was the werewolf episode. There was a some kind of like a zombie episode, and then Rupert would talk in between segments or whatever, and
Hmm.
we'd do these intros and outros. So I did this outro prop where it was this just supposed to be this gross pizza. Oh, it was the pizza that was used in the zombie thing, I think, that was being delivered to the house. And I don't remember, but anyway, on the one of the outros, Rupert's sitting there holding the pizza, and he's like holding the slice because one of the slices had an eyeball on it, and so I had to rig him up because it was meant to move. So he had an air hose going up his shirt, out his sleeve, through this hand to the through the or no, it went through this sleeve, behind the crust, and up into the pizza. So the slice of pizza that he was holding would like move around and stuff. Um, that was kind of fun. I mean, it was okay. Um,
Well, so it's like you've
The
done stuff for.
actors, the actors were a lot younger and inexperienced, I believe.
So I mean, you've done stuff for local film. You've done stuff for bigger stuff. You've done. I remember the gold bricks for the lottery.
Yeah,
You did something for a museum. Uh,
yeah.
uh,
The bog mummy.
yeah. You did tons and tons of stuff. Go check him out. It's Scott Blake. I will put the stuff in the description so you can go check out all of his stuff. Thank you for hanging out. Uh, I like it's just fun talking about all of the stuff in the past, like remembering back, like, oh, I remember when you posted about that, or I remember
Yeah,
checking that out. That was cool.
just talking about all this makes me realize how long ago it was.
Yeah, makes you think like how long was it? Like I have I, 10 years now of just movie making just for me.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've
yeah.
been doing what I do technically started in 2002, full time in 2000,
So
no,
what?
2004, full time in 2006.
So you're nearing on the 20-year mark.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So go check out his stuff. He's a great dude. If you have a project that you want to like, get a hold of him. Um, the worst he could say is I don't have time.
That would be nice to say.
But thank you, and we will be back next week right here on the Hobo Script. And I really got to remember to say that. We'll see you later.